Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I saw a lot of people coming from different time zones. Really excited to be here. My name is Stella, and I'm going to be your host, walking through experience of queues, explaining what it is, what we think can help, where we think it can help you, and answer any question you have. So, first of all, I'd like to start with a little bit motivation around why we ever built this product, kind of almost the product goals that we have. The world that we live in, or the world view that we're having right now is we found a lot of customers. They have the traditional contact centers, but given the fact that there's increasing demand for online interactions and whatnot, the traditional contact centers are not necessarily fulfilling the needs. We're seeing a lot of customers not only needing the traditional contact centers, but also need some mini hubs to empower their normal employee, their citizen agents, in order to have ad hoc customer engagement. So with that in mind, we're seeing a democratization of the ability from contact centers being available in tools like Teams to really enable regular customer engagement. And we are starting from calls. With that kind of worldview in mind, we are seeing the people who can be using this tool for customer engagement is not necessarily just a customer service agents or virtual agents. A lot of them are basically normal people like you and I, who basically have the regular customer engagement requirements. It can be nurses, receptionists, front desk, police on duty, and then we see they're a little bit different need, or more, or sometimes they need a simplified experience to fulfill their customer engagement requirements. With that in mind, I would like to introduce you to Queues app. This app is really what we think it is. It's really using the native Teams capability, giving you a home for you to conduct customer engagement. And we have different roles in mind, which I'll have a separate slide to depict the type of roles that we have in mind. And we have tailored experiences for those different roles. And we really have collaboration in mind. We want to kind of enable a peer-to-peer collaboration to solve one customer problems. And we want to really make our platform to be secure, reliable, and easy to manage for some of the team lead scenarios. So with that, I want to kind of introduce the type of roles or persona that we have in mind when we first designed the product, the Queues app. We know very sure for a lot of enterprises and bigger organizations, administrative people, ITs are still very important in kind of providing access, manage policies, or whatnot. They are the people who are giving permission to, I put it here, supervisors, but in the system, you can see it is what we call authorized users, who actually basically have a couple of superpowers to manage their team. The teams is we call it citizen agents. They are the people who are the face of your customer engagement. They interact with customers, and sometimes they can escalate to supervisors. And the calls and all can also be fronted by auto attendant, which kind of the first line of communication with the customer. So with that in mind, in the next few minutes, I'd like to kind of walk you through the experience between different persona, supervisor, and citizen agent, and give you a view of what can Queues app do for these audiences. I will start with the agents or citizen agents first. And this is the homepage or landing page on when you first open the app. This is what you will see for a busy queue. In this case, we can see I'm going to be acting as Rita, and who is the agent. Rita happened to have 2 queues, and we're giving Rita a very easy access to the 2 queues that she is part of and can have the rights to take calls from Woodland Bank and Woodland Support. She can switch back and forth different queues, and she can decide which queue to opt in to take calls separately. So in this case, for example, when she see this is really a busy queue, there are a number of calls waiting. The average call answering time is over 2 minutes. There's a couple of signals that she can see this is a busy queue. So with the permission of the admin, she can decide if she want to opt in or out of a queue. In this case, let's say she decided she can decide to opt in this case. And also on the home screen, what she can see is a list of call history. We think for agents and citizen agents, individual calls are very important. Of course, they have access to the people list, which I will show you more in the supervisor's view. But the people list is really the access to the leads as well as their colleagues in the same queue for easy collaboration. So as I said, this is a busy queue. Rita can decide opt-in. Once she opt-in, she can now start to kind of actually receive call toast. The incoming calls waiting will start to hit her queues up. So basically, you decide to opt in and start to take calls. Actually, one more point. The call toast is has a little bit information for the agents in a sense. It kind of tells what the call is intended for, meaning like which queue the caller is starting for. This case, Rita, although she is managing 2 queues, she has a clue of which queue that the caller is calling for. So this is the screen where, this is the experience where the call stage, after you accept the call, Rita accept the call, you will enter into a call stage where some of the controls are front and center. Rita can also open Copilot to ask questions, and just like she will engage in a meeting, she can use Copilot for some of the action items or whatnot to kind of keep a good note of what's happening in the call. So after the call, so let's say Rita has a little bit downtime, she can actually decide to call back some of the calls that she missed. So from the list of the call history, Rita had the option to pick the number she want to call from. So in this case, Rita is, as you can see, she actually have access to 2 queues so that she can call from the number from those 2 queues, so that the customer that she is calling to will see these resource accounts or call queue number instead of Rita's own work number, giving a little bit more professionalism in this process. In the meanwhile, as part of the call history, Rita will be able to listen to the recording, kind of look at the transcript or whatnot if it's enabled for that particular call. So this is a part of the roadmap, which is not currently in product, and a lot of design is not final. But I thought I want to share what we are also actively thinking about and developing. So this is an experience what we call the missed call. In the previous screen, what you're seeing, the missed call is actually a call that Rita personally missed from the queue, meaning that the call has already hit the call toast into Rita's queues app. In this scenario, what we are seeing, and in most cases, a lot of the missed calls or abandoned calls are actually shared missed call, in a sense that nobody from the queue actually picked the call up. In that case, it's a shared missed call. So one of the challenges our customer told us is, okay, it's great that you're showing me, it will be great if you show me a shared missed call, but if I return the call from one agent, I don't want the other agent to process that call anymore. So otherwise it become a duplicative call from the customer side. So with that in mind, we're adding a labeling or tagging kind of mechanism for missed calls. For example, in this case, Rita see a shared missed call and she decided to call back. So after the fact, she can mark the call as resolved or not resolved, and that status will be shared across the agents in the same queue. So the people who have visibility into the shared missed call history wouldn't call back the same call, giving a little bit kind of workflow synchronization and kind of like collaboration across the queue. So that is actually all I have for agent side of the experience. Just to recap, we talked about a little bit about how the agent have views of real-time stats to look at the queue's performance and ability opt-in, call controls, as well as some of the history handling here. So now I'm going to move on to what is the experience for team leads. So in the tool, we call them leads. And in the admin center, you can see them as more like authorized users. By authorized user, literally it means that they are assigned special policies and special capabilities from the admins so that they can have additional tools and capabilities to manage the team as well as manage the call queues. So in this case, I'm seeing Chris as the lead, and he also have access to 2 queues. And most cases, we see supervisors or leads usually actually have multiple queues to overseas, and sometimes they have auto attendant as well. So the homepage for when you open the app for the leads role, the app is slightly different than what you will see from agent. Supervisors can actually have more stats, more real-time stats than the agents. They have service level. They have a couple of more like kind of stats because supervisors care more about the overall performance and reliability of the queue and team versus individual calls. And that reflected on the left side of the experience as well. Chris really care more about the team management, how well performing their team is, do they need help or whatnot. So therefore, the left side, the manage queue section, as you may remember, for the agents, we start with the calls. But for supervisors, we actually start from people. So in that case, you can have a clear view of in your queue, how many people have opted in. In this case, there are 4 people, and how many have opted out. Give you a sense of basically where each of the member is. You can see most, in this case, it's a busy queue. Everyone is already part of the call. And also there is additional capability around settings available to the supervisors, which I will touch upon later. And what is one more thing that's different for the homepage is around this particular top right button called Analytics, where you can, Chris can actually launch a full-fledged dashboard to have a deep dive into in terms of the full performance of the call queue and auto attendant. So this is kind of where Chris will start his day by opening queues up and look at the stats, understanding where the queues is, and look at his team to see if they need any help. So one thing is, let's say this is a very in the scenario is this is a very big, very busy queue. The service level is a little bit, is not 100%, it's 80%. The calls waiting on whatnot. So again, couple of good signals to let Chris know that this call queue, this queue is relatively busy. So Chris actually have additional ability to opt in others. In this case, for example, right now there are three people opted in the queue. They're all busy. The queue is busy and their calls waiting. And there's 2 people actually currently opted out of the queue. So, and he can see KU is actually available, or even Miguel, who is offline. If Chris can get hold of him and give him a note, text him, and then Chris can actually opt in the agents. In this case, he can actually opt in KU. So this is the ability that agent does not have, but the leads actually have ability to opt in or out an agent on their behalf. On the other end, once Chris actually opts in KU will get a notification around that fact that she is opted in. Of course, she will see the status of opting from KU side. But this is the additional ability for the leads to manage their team capacity in a very flexible manner. So the second capability we're offering the leads, which is part of the roadmap, we think we'll actually get it out fairly soon, right after QZAP going to GA, is what we call the monitor whisper barge and takeover capability. By the way, the design are not final. These are all only concepts or the way that we use to communicate the feature. Monitor, whisper, barge, and takeover, it's a very common feature in the traditional contact center world, but we think this is a good feature for us to also kind of offer for the citizen agent type of roles for coaching and training purposes. In this case, Chris, let's say Rita is relatively new to the queue, and Chris want to offer some help. He can pretty much just kind of like chat with Rita for a bit and say, hey, Rita, I'm going to start to monitor your call and offer help as it goes. And Chris can actually initiate a monitoring session. From there, and monitoring allow Chris to join, not to join the call, but start to listening to Rita's ongoing call with the customers. And if required, Chris can whisper to Rita without the customer knowing Chris ever there, which is a kind of private voiceover to Rita only. If things further escalated, Chris can actually barge into the call, which the call effectively become a group call between customer, Rita, and Chris. And finally, Chris can also even take over the call, which Rita would no longer be part of that particular call and be set up free to accept new calls, but Chris can take over that customer conversation. All of those kind of steps are meant for training purposes, and the customer from the first two stages, the monitor and whisper, wouldn't know. Of course, your company can decide to give a general notification to the customer, say, hey, your calls may be monitored or whatnot, but it is not necessarily directly associated with this particular feature. Monitor and whisper, customer wouldn't know Chris is there. But starting from barge and takeover, Chris will show up in the call. So that is kind of the one new capability that we're thinking as a fast follow right after RGA. And then, as I said, on the top right of the experience, you will find the analytical dashboard entry points. And that's where you actually launch this view. So you have in the home screen, you have seen mostly the real-time stats. Eventually, we actually want to do both real-time and historical. Historical, we are still under development, but we think there will be something that we can be kind of like pushing out fairly soon. But with real-time and historical, we think we give the supervisors a full view of what's happening and what has happened to trace back any trends happening in the queue and auto attendant. In this case, for example, we stop at the real-time stats, kind of the dashboard. Chris actually have access to all the auto attendants, all the call queues, and all the agents that he has permissions over. So this is just a mock-up, and some of the data is just mock-up. So, but the idea is Chris can see across his queues and across his auto attendants, and also look at individual queues and auto attendant for the stats he has. For historical, it's very similar, just that you can trace back to a little bit in back in time and being able to export reports based on time range you picked. Real time is actually updated in real time. It is like kind of a snapshot of what's happening exactly in the queue. So another capability we have, remember, in the home screen, homepage, where the starting point of the app here for the supervisor, you actually have an entry point around settings. This is where you can actually launch and experience what we call delegate administration. And this is the experience. So once you click on the settings, which can also be accessible from your top right and click into settings and get into the calls or one as the same, but the entry point within Queues app just leads you directly to the queues where you actually launch the settings from. So this capability, essentially what it is we allow the authorized users like supervisors being able to configure and manage their call queues and auto attendant they have permissions over. Essentially, a lot of the configurations capabilities, like how you want to handle a call, what are the routing methods, the membership of the queue, all of the capabilities which used to be only available to the admins. Now, actually, we make it democratized and available to the authorized users. What we learned from our customers is that in the past, if something like a business hour or a greeting of a queue, you want to make changes because of seasonality or whatnot, sometimes you need a flyer ticket to the help desk. It can take months to actually get to it. Really not supporting very agile business management. So we want to empower the business unit to be able to manage their queue in their terms, and still the IT admins have the control in terms of where they want this capability to be available and to whom. So again, in this experience, depending on the call queues or auto attendant you have permission over, you can make changes to the queue and auto attendant accordingly. So with that, actually, I finished the almost answered the question about what is key and what it does for you. Right now, we actually announced the Qs app in the Enterprise Connect. We enter into private preview or limited preview in April. We are working very hard on moving it to GA, which will happen later this year. In order to have Qs app, there are a couple of requirements, hard requirements to enable that once we go GA. First is the user need to be in the new Teams. Second, the user need to be having Teams Phone and Teams Premium licenses. If you want to know, if you find me talking too fast, and you want to kind of have a brief, another kind of rundown of what the Qs app is about, there's a link which is our announcement blog, which has a very nice video there, which allow you to kind of have a quick overview of the ability. And that video can be used and shared with anyone in your organization as well to get a brief introduction of the Qs app. So with that is my presentation. It's nobody asked live questions, but I'll stop
they were
here.
asking questions. Stella, they were asking a lot of questions. And so Casandra was doing a good job, and we have some other people helping. But there is one question I think we had a couple people ask about it. Okay. So in call queues, for the longest time, you can set them up so they're voice-enabled channels. So does it matter if they're set up as voice-enabled channels, right, versus regular call queues that you set up with the users in them? Are they all going to show up in the Qs app? Let me ask that question first.
Yes. So it doesn't matter whether you are using voice-enabled channel or the call queue services only. It will show up in the Qs app.
Okay. Then the other question that I think also too is, what's the benefit of using a voice-enabled channel, or should I just do this because now I'm getting a lot more benefits from the Qs app, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. So we think voice-enabled channel isn't going to fulfill a lot of the customer requirement that we got from our customers, and also kind of the future direction that we are seeing teams can have regarding B2C communication. So first of all, in a channel, as some of our customers kind of share with us, and if you are already using voice in the channel, you probably know it's a little bit hard to navigate the channel navigation to locate the queue, for example. In that case, like the customer engagement are very kind of time sensitive, right? You don't want to miss the conversation. So we think a separate standalone experience will even serve the current jobs to be done that already been fulfilled by voice-enabled channel much better. And we're adding new capabilities only to the Qs app. So we are not going to add new features in voice-enabled channel, for example. So it will be a kind of like a lightweight team collaboration to handle call queues, and it's part of Teams Phone, for example. But if you actually are serious about customer engagement and you want these features, kind of I showed in the presentation just now, I would say Qs app is the right home for it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is it will be able to add members to the queues from the Qs app. I think that was one of the big points of having a Teams enabled channel was, hey, I can manage those who's in the queue, right? Those agents, so to speak. Yeah, so if we're able to do that from there, I think that's gonna definitely be a plus.
Yeah, like I shared in the presentation, the delegate administration capability, the authorized user can actually add a remove member. Not only they can also do that for the distribution list, not only the channel. Of course, you can still use, if it's a voice-enabled channel queue, you can use the channel mechanism to add and remove member. So that capability isn't going away. But if you're using kind of the distribution list, office group or whatnot, and the delegate administration capability actually give you the full control and giving you the ability to add and remove member from the settings interface. So actually giving you more options to manage your members.
Yep, absolutely. Perfect. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
And the questions continue to rise in, so we'll continue to answer these. So I think that hands over to, I don't know if you're ready to take over, Casandra, or not.
I don't think that there was a plan to take over. So my role is trying to keep up with the very the great interest that we've got from the audience. But yeah, no, I think Stella, it's covered pretty much everything that we have today. But I mean, we can take some questions live, so more than happy. I know that I probably missed some as kind of they started flowing. So do feel free to put your hands up if there is anything that we haven't yet addressed on the chat.
Well, I do know that the premium license conversation keeps on coming up, right? So yeah. Just to confirm, anybody who needs to do anything in the Qs app will need to have the Teams premium license. Doesn't matter if they're a supervisor or an agent or somebody just needed to see the stats. Doesn't matter.
Correct.
Okay.
And the one thing that it was questioned as well is you can have a mix of people that have Teams Premium and not. The main difference is who will be able to actually access the QSAP experience. So I think there was a question with regards to, does every agent require Teams Premium? Only if you need them to access the QSAP experience.
Yeah, the QSAP versus if they just want queues, right? If they just are a part of call queues, they don't need the app. Right, correct. They don't need the premium license. They can just be regularly licensed for EV.
So if you just want to take calls from call queues, you don't need queues app, right? You don't need, if you don't want to see who is in the same list and same queues, and you want to, like the auto capability I showed, you don't have to have queues app. But if you want queues app, the capabilities I showed there, then you need to have the licenses.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, and I think David asking that again. David asking that again, if it's required in order for the call stats to be incorporated into the Qs app. Yes, I think it is. You still need to have premium. Any interaction you're doing, David, with the Qs app, you do need to have a license.
One that will be Donald to actually address as well is with regards to the Copilot integration. So Stella, I don't know if you want me to cover or you want to cover, but there is a question with regards to whether Copilot is obviously integrated in QSAP and also whether it'll be able to actually work across multiple calls as opposed to individual calls. So maybe you can take that one.
Great question. So currently the Copilot capability is, I would say, essentially very similar to what you will have in a meeting when you are in meeting. So in the call, you can launch Copilot, ask questions, and then you will have some default fixed prompt like recap action so far and whatnot. So that is what Copilot what the Qs app have access to for Copilot right now. It does not yet reason over multiple calls, but that's something that you can imagine. It's not hard for us to think that would be a killer feature for us. So that will be something that is actually something that we're actually thinking about, but it's not yet available inside Qs app. Well, actually not available in any calls. So it is not, you cannot actually reason across calls right now.
Okay. I did see a couple questions wrapped around voicemails with these types of things.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Hey, Donald, just wondering, can we maybe try and we have Troy and Elizabeth have got their hands up as well.
Well, I think Elizabeth threw her question in the chat. So can reports be scheduled? Right. So we can do that. And this is the historical reports. I think there's a couple conversations, a couple other questions that are wrapped around.
One at a time. I'm here. I'm all ears. Exactly. One at a time.
Yeah. So let's do the voicemail piece first. Right.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So voicemail, we do realize that the current experience in voice-enabled channel, for example, isn't ideal. So, but the ideal experience is like the missed call handling workflow that I introduced just now, which is in the roadmap, is allow the user being able to kind of mark status of voicemail. It's a shared voicemail, but you can mark status so people know whether it's kind of processed or not. So that is in the roadmap. It will be very similar to the missed call handling process. So right now, today, if you open Qs app inside a preview program, what you experience is actually a personal missed call history, in a sense that that call hit your queues up, it shows up as a toast, but you choose not to open it, right? And if it's a presence mode enabled, it's gonna, that call rings multiple agents at the same time, nobody picked up, right? So still it's it is actually hitting your queues up already. So kind of assigned to you already. So in that case, and if customer actually left in voicemail, it will show up in your call history as a missed call history. In that, from there, you can listen to the voicemail. However, you don't have the ability to label that voicemail yet. So that workflow, handling status, sharing the workflow is not in the product yet, which is part of the roadmap, and we will be working on it.
Perfect. That's good. And then I think Elizabeth was asking about, can we see historical reports? And I think if I'm mistaken, you were saying that's not 100% baked yet. That's coming, right?
Yeah. So that's actually what we are actively coding, actively in development. So we expect to hit the preview tenants fairly soon, and leading up to GA, you're very likely able to have the capability as part of the GA bits as well. So historical is allow you to go back in history, right, and pull reports for like 1 week, 2 weeks, kind of pull reports from there. It cannot be scheduled as of now, but it can be exported. The raw data can be exported.
And then as far as, I think, retention policy for that data, that's typical across all of what we do from a Teams phone perspective. So it's going to go in those rules, but we're not going to have forever, right? It's going to purge itself after a little while.
Yeah. So I believe it's the same as, because today, if you are very fluent with Power BI, the admin can actually pull reports for call queues, and I believe it's 27 days kind of ish, right? So
right.
And then it will use very basically the same retention. We're using the same backend, so the retention policy is the same.
Exactly.
I think about a month old data, right? And we'll store the data that way. We do know that the amount kind of old data isn't good enough. People want to run reports for a longer period of time and whatnot, which we want to work on. We just like, it won't be part of the first release.
Okay. So expect that as a follow-on, maybe not a fast follow, but at least a follow-on for later on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Good. Wow, the questions are just flying through. Good job, guys.
I was like, when I was presenting, I was like, okay, nobody asked questions. Should I keep going?
So I see Danny threw your hand up. Go ahead and put your question in the chat so that we can answer it. Now, again, a lot of people are asking about when this is coming out. Let's just make sure we say it another time. Summer GA, we cannot get any more specific on that. And it's not going to be full featured, like the Monitor Barge Whisper piece is not coming out until afterwards. Is there anything else that is not coming out that you can tell us?
The missed call handling.
Missed call handling.
Yeah. So those are very big items that involves multiple service team, multiple client team, and whatnot. So that requires a little bit more time.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to reiterate, Casandra was saying that the limited public preview has been closed. In fact, I think I heard the stat, it was closed 5 hours after you guys launched it. They had that many people.
It was pretty close. It was an overwhelming response, which is incredible to see. And we keep on actually bringing on new customers. So obviously, I do recommend to keep in touch with your account teams and just let them know of your interest. If there is additional capacity, we'll always want to bring in more customers. But as of today, yes, we are at maxing out in there.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. I mean,
but I hope that wait isn't going to be too long. So
yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
Cross our fingers. We're hoping for that. Okay. Well, great. I think we're down to the last 5 minutes. So